Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Our woman in focus today is a woman that I have been admiring for a very long time. And the other day when I said to her, let's interview you in Women in Focus, and she said no. And I said, come on, Sital. It'll be fun talking about yourself and fun talking about all the stuff that you've done in life. Let's talk about it. So she agreed, and she's here in our studios. Sital Dhillon is our woman in focus today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I've always been a fan of Women in Focus.
Yes.
I've watched for many years. I've seen the likes of Asha Bolle, and I would think, you know.
And your mother?
My mom.
Yeah.
Amongst other people, here
Yes.
I am today in front of you on Women in Focus.
Lovely. Let's talk about your childhood. Were you born here?
I was born and raised in Vancouver.
Uh-huh.
I was blessed to be raised with two parents,
Yeah.
two siblings,
Yes.
and privileged to have a great-grandfather in my life until I was 12 years old.
Wow.
We've had two sets of grandparents that lived
Lovely.
with us. And to be honest, over the years, we've had a revolving door of students that my parents welcomed.
Yes.
We've had displaced families that needed direction, and my parents were gracious enough to give them room and board free of charge.
Yes.
So my dad came in 1948, just after
Wow.
Indian independence.
Wow.
And he was 18 years of age, and he's never met his father once until he came in Canada.
Oh my, isn't that just amazing?
He began working and going to night school, and I can't understand for the life of me in today's world how it was actually possible to accommodate all of these people and to work with service with a smile. It's not even possible today to have to take that type of responsibility. We had a large extended family that also lived with us.
Right.
Essentially, I was never having to worry about going out to meet people.
People were always there.
They were always there,
Yeah.
and they always had a story to tell. So that gave me more empathy towards understanding people's lives and their lifestyles. And so I'm just grateful to have had a wealth of knowledge placed in front of me.
You know, you mentioned your dad came here right after India's independence, 1948. And I remember talking to your mum, Mrs. Dhillon, and when she came here all by herself alone from India to Canada to meet your dad.
Yes.
And then they got married here.
They got married in 1952.
Wow.
My mom was only 17 years of age.
There you go.
And to cook and clean for all of these people at that age.
She did that.
She raised 3 children with
Yes.
my dad.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how they were able to manage all of
Yes.
these tasks,
Yeah.
you know. And today it continues, and there's still a service with a smile.
They always do that. Whenever you meet your mom and dad, I've never seen them upset about anything. I've always seen a smile on their face, and they talk beautifully to everybody. And you're right, they have helped everyone who has come through those doors of your house.
Yes.
So you said, you know, 2 sets of grandparents. So let's talk about your dad's parents and your mom's parents.
Well, my grandfather from my paternal side
Yes.
arrived in 1930 from India.
Right.
He first was on a ship, and he ended up in Panama.
Okay.
And then he eventually made his way up to meet our great-grandfather.
Okay.
So this was quite a journey for him.
I bet.
And he was able to see all of the discrimination and racism towards people
Colored
that,
people.
people of all
Yeah.
backgrounds who were living here at the time. So when my dad arrived here, immediately he began working at the Kapoor Mills,
Yes.
and he was taking night school in the evenings, and returning back to work the next day.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, so my mom, she was also a champion
Right.
to be able to manage all of these new life skills.
That's
and
right.
a new culture.
And in those days, they couldn't wear their own clothes, right? They had to wear Western clothes, did they?
They had to wear Western clothes. But, you know, it was okay. I think people were able to manage.
Yes. Like when you're in Rome, you know, act like Romans, that kind of a deal, right? So if you're in a foreign country, they didn't mind, they just adapted to
quicker.
it.
I think there was a lot less South Asians or
Right.
ethnic groups at that time, and it was easier just to follow the protocol of what most people did.
Right.
There was generally Anglo-Saxon people
Yes.
in general that lived here. My grandfather, in fact, encouraged us to attend church, and we would go to Sunday school.
No kidding.
That's right. And that helped us expose us to how the community congregated on
Right.
Sundays,
Yeah.
and helped us understand more about our neighbors and friends in our community.
I think, and it was easier for you to then mingle with everybody else and have no discrimination.
I didn't see any discrimination.
No.
Because we thought we were part of the larger community.
There you go. Sital, I want to talk to you about your childhood and your siblings as well. Let's take a short break and come back.
Okay.
Sital is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our woman in focus today is Sital Dhillon. So Sital, we were talking about mom and dad welcoming, open door, anybody can come in. And I know your mom and dad, your mom cooks beautifully. I mean, so she must have looked after all the immigrants that came to this country and walked through their door.
Yes.
They were welcome
Yes.
with open arms, right? A smile on their face and letting them all come in.
Yeah.
Now, growing up, your mom got involved with IMA, which is India Mahila Association.
Yes.
And you tag along with mom.
Yes.
And you helped as well. Can we talk a little bit about your contribution to IMA?
Well, it was a very significant moment in 1972, actually. I was in the kitchen, and one of the family friends contacted my mom and had a discussion. Her name was Rhoda Pavri. She was
Yes.
a Farsi woman.
Yes.
And she was a teacher. And she was involved with the Canadian Folk Fest Society. And she had noticed that there was no South Asian representation. And so she was concerned that we were missing out and the public did not know enough about us. So 5 women got together and formed a group and established themselves in 1973 and called themselves the India Mahila Women's Association.
Right.
IMA for short.
Yes.
And so we immediately hired a teacher,
Yeah.
and she taught us Indian dancing. And what was really exciting about it was we were a secular group of women, and we had to represent all of India. So we had, of course, Rhoda Pavri, who was Farsi. We had a woman, Premchet Siripawa, and their children, and she was South Asian from Singapore.
Yes.
And we had my mom, who was part of the group.
Yes.
And so we learned to dance, first of all, the folk festival,
Right.
harvest dance, followed by the Rajasthani dance. Yeah, and then after that, we learned the Krishna's Gopis dance.
Oh, yeah. So Kathak.
Yes.
Right.
I still remember some of the steps. And we also did the peacock dance.
Right.
So we had an opportunity to dance.
Participate in that.
Yes, suddenly we were on stage.
Yeah.
We were on the Queen Elizabeth Theatre's Folk Fest. We were invited to open the Granville Mall, where IMA sat on convertible cars, and we
Right.
were like the grand marshals parading through the streets and waving in our costumes. So
Right.
it was really something.
Must have been beautiful.
It was amazing. And then we were opening the Expo 86 BC Place Stadium.
Right.
And we were getting calls, and we represented ourselves in the 11th Commonwealth Games in Edmonton,
Wow.
78, followed by being invited once again. And I went to Victoria in 1994 to celebrate the 15th Commonwealth Games.
Wow. Isn't that just beautiful?
Yes.
So your involvement with all that is because Mom was one of the founding members of IMA.
Well, they were one of the founding members, but at that time, they needed people to also demonstrate arts and crafts, and we did some cooking demonstrations and clothing demonstrations, and the group was showcasing our cultural side, and we had gone to Woodward's Food Floors, for example, and UBC, so people could be exposed to South Asian culture.
Right, right.
But something significant happened at the mid-70s when a large influx of immigrants came to Canada. A large number came from India, and there were rural people working from the villages. There were unskilled workers, and suddenly there was difficulty with settlement issues, employment, language, and child care.
Yeah.
And so suddenly there was a role reversal where women actually went out to work,
Yes.
and men remained at home to perhaps for the first time actually have children in front of them to mind for.
Right.
So this caused quite a friction. There was insecurities, jealousy that took place,
Right.
alcoholism got into the picture,
Right.
and finally violence in the home. We were on the roster list for South Asian services culturally,
That's right.
but we were receiving phone calls suddenly, concerned from doctors, concerned from hospitals, social workers, and school counselors with regards to how we can provide liaison. So some of the IMA members included teachers and social workers, and so they were able to provide some sort of liaison, but we needed to reassess what IMA was going to do at that time.
Right.
So we established new priorities for ourselves. We did not take away from our cultural aspect, but we did challenge those who devalued us as women. We're in umbrella organizations. We had worked with a multitude of people. We provided guests, and we started to add skits and plays to demonstrate to the world and to the public
Right.
that this is the situations that need to be corrected, and not just in the South Asian community, but we addressed issues that were affecting all of us as a community at large. So IMA became the only women's organization that was established in I think all of Canada at
Right.
that, the first women's organizations, and more so in South Vancouver.
I want to talk a little bit more about your work, right? You've kept all the records of whatever IMA has done. So let's take a very short commercial break and come back.
Okay.
Sital is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Sital Dhillon is our woman in focus today. So Sital, listening to you, I've attended many women, India Mahila Association, meetings and your programs, and kept a record myself of all the videos that had been done. I think the last one we did together was 35th anniversary? Yeah, now probably we'll be doing the 40th or 50th anniversary or something like that. So I want to go back to your childhood. What have you been always interested in? Because I've always seen you keep all the records of whatever India Mahila Association is going. If I asked you, where can you get this paper? Or you would just go and quickly pick it out and show it to me. As a child, what did you want to do?
Well, my mom helped us navigate what she wanted us to do. There was not very many experiences. My grandfather took us to church.
Yes.
My mom found out about a baton twirling team. So she wanted us to get involved. And we were surprised that there was actually, apart from my sister and myself,
right,
there was a third person who was also of South Asian origin.
Right.
So all of a sudden, we were the Lynette's Majorette's baton twirling team. We went all across the lower mainland. We were on the Kitsilano showboat.
Yeah.
I was only 5 years old.
So I was twirling a baton.
Twirling a baton. I still know how to twirl a baton, and I'm still in a whirl about that. We actually went to Burlington on our own.
Yeah.
Someone drove us across the border, and my mom was terrified, that at 5 years old, we went across the border, and we were actually in competitions, marching in parades. And
how was that for you?
It was incredible. We were on the stage. People were looking at us. And from that point on, I decided that there needs to be more opportunities for me to be on that stage and
So you liked being on stage?
I liked being on stage.
So dancing is another passion of yours?
It is.
Yeah. So you've always participated in all IMA dance, skits and programs?
Yes, I did. We were in a dance team together, and it was part of being able to cooperate with one another, to be able to share with one another, to laugh with one another, to be part of a group and to meet other groups and be something that we thought was not possible in our earlier days. So.
Yeah. Having said that, IMA, and you mentioned, started as a cultural group.
Yes.
Became a service for women, and then and now it's a group that I think has never had a president, but there is one person. Raminder always, looked after the group as a main person.
Yes.
We had Harminder ji there, who passed away.
Yes.
Your mom, Mrs. Pava, is still there, and Rhoda Pavri passed away, right?
Yes.
So two of the main original people are no longer there, but the group is still going on.
This group is going on. We're going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary.
50.
50.
Wow.
Half a century.
Isn't that just beautiful?
It's going to be a big
event,
celebration.
Yeah.
And we will see how it unfolds next year.
That's right.
Yes.
So next year is going to be the 50th year.
It will be the 50th year.
So as a child, you wanted to be on stage. Have you been able to realize that dream of yours?
I realized it when IMA was invited to the 11th Commonwealth Games.
Okay.
And asked me if I would like to perform in Victoria in 1994.
Right.
So I was able to help open the Commonwealth Place in Victoria with my peacock dance.
Beautiful.
So while I was there, I saw a note on the wall, and it actually requested those that were interested to apply for an opportunity to be a medal presenter. So for the Commonwealth Games. And all of a sudden, I'm standing beside the Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations. And I was presenting medals with the Queen's son, Prince Edward.
Wow.
And I thought, well, how did I go from, you know, entertaining to stand
Presenting,
beside
yeah.
dignitaries? But that wasn't the highlight of the event.
Yeah.
At the closing ceremonies, I was handed the flag of the Bahamas, and I was marching in with Bahamas and holding the flag for the Bahamas team. Now they have athletes
Right.
do this, but
That's
here I
right.
was, and everyone was thinking I won, but it was just a moment in time. But the whole shift for me, the focal point of the entire games, was to walk in with South Africa.
Yes.
And why was that such a significant viewpoint for me? Because South Africa was kicked out of the Commonwealth in 1961 to 1994.
So that was the first year.
It was the first year that I walked in with South Africa.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I want, after the pandemic, I would like to travel
Where would you like to go?
wherever life will take me. I've done some pretty remarkable adventures
Yes.
at the last minute.
Yes.
I actually spontaneously went with a woman on a cruise to the South Pacific, and we actually ended up in Thailand.
No kidding.
Yes, and Singapore and Vietnam and
That was fun.
Borneo, and I just walked through the streets, and people actually invited me into their homes. I thought it was fascinating.
Yes.
I don't know if it was the brightest thing to do, because they could have been anybody also to them.
So you could be doing that in the next little while. Well, Sital, it has been fun talking to you and great talking to you. And I thank you very much for taking time and talking to us in Women in Focus.
Thank you.
Sital Dhillon has been our Women in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.